We've got a lot of stuff going on. I'm Kathrine Spigarelli, and I'm the chairman of the Cato Historical Preservation Association. That's a mouthful. And we are here today to celebrate the earliest community in Crawford County. Used to be a part of Bourbon County, actually, but now it's a part of Crawford County. And Cato was established in like 1854. I had a little boy on Thursday who raised his hand because he knew what year the school was built, and he ran up to get his prize, and I said, tell us what year, and he said 1969, and I'm like, no, try again, and he was like, 1969 is a long time ago if you're only 10 years old. So anyway, it was, we had a great day for Cato Kids Day on Thursday, and we had around 650 kids. Matt was there doing a presentation, and he does a wonderful job combining history, Civil War history, with weaponry, and the kids eat it up. I mean, he pulls out this saber, and they all are like, their eyes are big, and then he gets his gun, and he tells them that they only need 2 teeth. They only need, how do you say that?
I say to be a really effective soldier, you need 2 teeth, one above and one below, because you got to be able to tear the cartridge. That's the main job.
So he tears it and pours it into the gun and shoots it. They are all eyes and ears, and they love it. So this morning, we're going to be doing a few little things here in the church. I put a schedule outside so that you can see. We've got a couple of other things. We have a cavalry saber drill. Did I say that right? Cavalry. Okay. I have to.
You've been working on it.
I am working on it. I have to. Matt, what do you tell the kids?
When they mispronounce it, I say Calvary was the hill that Jesus died on. Cavalry were the guys that rode him back.
So I have to work on that. So cavalry saber drills, and then we're going to have the schoolhouse. Don't miss the schoolhouse presentation. It's wonderful. And we're going to have a reenactment of the 1860s settler removal, and lunch, and drawing for the quilt, and that's the quilt right there. And we're going to have a little auction. We've got a few little items that are really interesting, and we just hope all of the money, all the proceeds go to Cato. And we have Susie. This is Susie Stell. Susie took over for, help me out, John Sperling, who started doing Cato tours here a long, long time ago. And Susie was enthralled with the interest of the history of the area. And John died, and that's when Susie really got started with, we got the school on the National Register of Historic Places, built in 1869, and started doing Cato tours that were a little bit more, I don't know, a little more complicated maybe than what John was doing. And then we added Cato Kids Day in 2011. So we had 650 kids, or up to 700 on that day. So anyway, Cato has a lot going on, and we use all of the money for upkeep and whatever. So we appreciate your donations. I'll be passing the basket in a little bit, and if you want to give us a donation, that would be wonderful. And in Marilyn, would you like to talk? And then we're going to listen to Matt present some music to us. Matt does a wonderful job with historical music, and we have a special person that's going to give us a presentation on history. Do you have a name, sir? Mud. Carl. Carl and Matt. So, Marilyn?
Okay, I'm Cato member Marilyn Flagg, and I hadn't planned to attend Cato today, but I came for a short while. And I'm usually sitting here selling raffles, but Virginia's filling she'll do a wonderful job. And then after the church hill, she'll go over to the school steps and still selling raffles. I'm the daughter of Wes and Vera Coonrod, of which perhaps some of you can remember. I grew up on a farm 1.5 miles north of Cato, and my mom's mother name was Emma James Hale. And so Emma's parents were Robert Francis, and they called him Frank, and Elizabeth, they called her Ma James of Cato. Well, Robert Francis was born in 1839 in Jacksonville, Illinois, and he passed here in Cato in 1894. And so Robert is buried in the Trogman Cemetery, and it just sits not too far from here to the northeast of Cato. And so when he died pretty young, he left Ma with 10 children to raise in Cato. So Emma and Samuel Levi were 2 of their youngest of 10 children. And then Ma went ahead and followed her son Warren James, and deceased in Holly, Colorado. And I want to welcome my cousin Michael James, he is here today, and he drove over 1,000 miles from northern Michigan to enjoy the Cato tour. He is the grandson of Samuel Levi James, that was a brother to my grandma Emma. So Robert Francis and Ma James are our great-grandparents. And so from what I can decipher is that all of the Jameses in Cato are related and are descendants of Robert Wesley James and Eleanor Pease James of Jacksonville in Morgan County, Illinois. So Robert and Eleanor, they're buried in a James cemetery in Jacksonville. So Michael, would you stand? We want to recognize you for coming this far. I picked him up yesterday at the hotel in Fort Scott, and we really had a good time. We went, where Mug and Leona James used to live. It's now owned by Nate Garrett. And we visited the Reynolds', and we went to the Kelly Ranch, and one of their employees took us to the Coonrod Cemetery, the Buckhorn Tavern, the Coonrod Spring, and where their cabin was at. And then we ended up at Cato and visited with the people putting the tractors here, and Joe Benoveril and Catherine. Then we went on to the large cemetery, and then he came out last night. Tonight he's going to stay with us, and so we really had a good time. And I just think it's great that somebody can drive that far and try to find. And we'd never met each other. We just met each other on the computer a few months ago, and I mailed him 36 pages of ancestry, and he had lots of pictures. We've been looking at him last night, and so he may come back again. I think he's had a good time. Thank you.
Well, good morning, everyone. As Kathrine mentioned, my name is Matthew Wells. This morning I'm just going to do a few selections from military songs of this area. As many of you know, Cato was a stagecoach stop between Fort Scott and Girard back in the day. They had a place over here called the Buckhorn Tavern where everyone would hole up every night and have a good time. Fort Scott, of course, was established as part of the military frontier and a stop on the military highway. And its main job was to transport troops to and from Mexico at that point for the Mexican-American War. It was one of the staging areas for transporting supplies. A couple of the battles that the soldiers were involved in during the 1840s, one was called the Battle of Monterey. This first song is called The Maid of Monterey. The moon was shining brightly upon the battle plain. The gentle breeze fanned lightly the features of the slain. The guns had placed their battle, and the drums in silence lay. When came the señorita, the maid of Monterey. The guns had hushed their thunder, and in the silence lay. When came the señorita, the maid of Monterey. She cast a look of anguish upon the dying dead. Her lap she made a pillow of those who groaned and bled. And when the dying soldiers for one bright green Maid of Monterey. And when the soldiers dying for one bright beam did pray, he blessed the senorita, the Maid of Monterey. She gave them thirsty water and dressed their bleeding wounds, and gentle prayers she uttered for those who sighed and ruined. And when the bugle sounded just at the break of day, we blessed the senorita, the Maid of Monterey. And when the bugle sounded just at the break of day, we blessed the senorita, the Maid of Monterey. For though she loved her nation and prayed that it might live, yet for the dying foeman she had a tear to give. And here's to that bright beauty who drove death's pangs away, the meek-eyed senorita, the Maid of Monterey. And here's to that bright beauty who drove death's pangs away, the meek-eyed senorita, the Maid of Monterey. Another battle they were involved in was the Battle of Buena Vista, of renown because at that particular battle, the general who was in charge of the Spanish army had a fake leg, and they surprised him so quickly at that battle that he left his leg, and the soldiers then carried that leg back with them here to America. So they used the tune of a song called The Girl I Left Behind, which is actually a British tune. So I'll do you a little snippet of the British tune and then a couple verses from The Leg I Left Behind. The hours there I left the maid, lighting fire, talking and hide my tears were quick delay. At the breaking hearting, hurried were her words I blessed. I read the vows behind me, and the heart inspired much. I left the girl I left behind me. At Buena Vista I was sure the Yankees must surrender, and there beneath your hurting poor we all were for a bender. At Cerro Gordo my hopes were dashed, and scattered troops remind me, for there I was so soundly thrashed, the leg I left behind me. I dare not turn to view the place, lest Yankees fam would find me, and marching shake before my face the leg I left behind me. But should there e'er my future be, or ere there would resign me, for in a museum I will see the leg I left behind me. And so then we move on to the next phase of this area in military history. Shortly after Bleeding Kansas, of course, we move into the Civil War. There were two songs, one for the South and one for the North, that were instrumental in their mythology as they moved into both these battles. So I'll do both those songs for you. First the Southern song, and then the Union song that was written in reprise to the Southern song. We are a band of brothers with very far in view, fighting for our liberty with treasures that are few. When our rights were trampled, the cry went near and far. Hurrah for the bonny blue flag that bears a single star. Hurrah, hurrah, for Northern rights, hurrah. Hurrah for the bonny blue flag that bears a single star. Hurrah, hurrah, for Southern rights, hurrah. Hurrah for the bonny blue flag that bears a single star. As long as they were faithful the battle cry of freedom for the entire Union Army. Yes, we'll rally around the flag, boys, we'll rally once again, shouting the battle cry of freedom. We'll rally from the hillside and gather all the plains, shouting the battle cry of freedom. Union forever, hurrah, boys, hurrah, down with the traitors and up with the stars. Well, we'll rally around the flag, boys, we'll rally once again, singing the battle cry of freedom. Well, we're springing to the call for 300,000 more, shouting the battle cry of freedom, and we'll fill the vacant ranks for our brothers gone before, shouting the battle cry of freedom. Union forever, hurrah, boys, hurrah, down with the traitors and up with the stars. Oh, we'll rally around the flag, yes, we'll rally once again, singing the battle cry of freedom. So we're springing to the call from the east and from the west, shouting the battle cry of freedom, and we'll hurl the rebel crew from the land that we love best, shouting the battle cry of freedom. Union forever, hurrah, boys, hurrah, down with the traitors and up with the stars. Oh, we'll rally around the flag, yes, we'll rally once again, shouting the battle cry of freedom. Yes, we'll rally around the flag, boys, we'll rally once again, shouting the battle cry of freedom. And then moving along, one night, there was a lady who was in her house, and out on the fields encamped around her house, she heard the Union Army, and they were singing a song that was very popular with amongst of the soldiers. And that song went like this. John Brown's body lies a-moldering in the grave. John Brown's body lies a-moldering in the grave. John Brown's body lies a-moldering in the grave, but his truth is marching on. John Brown was a hero, he undaunted, true and brave. Kansas knew his valor when he fought for her rights to save. And now the grass grows green above his dark and barren grave, but his truth is marching on. Well, he captured Harper's Ferry with his 19 minutes of view, and he frightened old Virginia till she trembled through and through. Well, they hung him for a traitor, themselves a traitor's crew, but his truth is marching on. Well, John Brown was John the Baptist, for Christ the world to see, for Christ whom all the bondsmen shall the liberator be. And soon through the sunny south the slaves shall all be free, for his truth is marching on. Well, the conflict that he heralded, he looked from heavenly view, and the army of the Union with its flag red, white, and blue, and the heaven shall ring its anthems o'er the deeds that men will do, for his truth is marching on. Oh, the soldiers of freedom then strike while you strike when may, the death blow of oppression in a better time and way, for the dawn of old John Brown was brightened into day, and his truth is They have built in him an altar in the evening dews and dance. I can read the righteous sentence by the dim and flaring lamps. His day is marching on. In the beauty of the lilies, Christ was born across the sea, with the glory in his bosom that transfigures you and me. He died to make men holy. Let us die to make men free. His God is marching on. Glory, glory, hallelujah. Glory, glory, hallelujah. Glory, glory, hallelujah. While God is marching on.
Thank you for that. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Appreciate that. All right, we'll do a couple more quick ones. This one here is a favorite little marching tune. It's a fife and bugle tune originally, but it comes from a bar drinking song from way back in Ireland.
So we've done that.
What's that?
It's a bar drinking song, so we're gonna have fun doing it.
That's right. That's right. Yes. And I'll teach you the chorus real quick,
Yeah.
and then y'all can sing the chorus with me every time we come to it, because like all good bar drinking songs, it's a call and response. I did this song because this song became the marching song of the 7th Cavalry. It's a fun one. So the chorus goes, instead of spall, we'll drink brown ale, and bear the reckoning on the nail. No man for debt will go to jail for Gary Owen in glory. So when we get there, everybody sing with me. Got it? Let both his sons don't be dismayed, but join me now, each double blade. Come booze and drink and lend some May. Help me sing the chorus. Here we go. Instead of spall, we'll drink brown ale, and bear the reckoning on the nail. No man for debt will go to jail for Gary Owen in glory. Well, we are the boys that delight in dashing lyric lights and light through the streets like soldiers fighting and tearing the way before us. Instead of spall, we'll drink brown ale, and bear the reckoning on the nail. No man for debt will go to jail for Gary Owen in glory. Well, we'll breach your windows, we'll break your doors, and we'll knock down your watches by 3s and 4s, and we'll go to the doctors and work the cures, tinkering up our bruises. Instead of spall, we'll drink brown ale, and bear the reckoning on the nail. No man for debt will go to jail for Gary Owen in glory. Well, we'll beat your bailiffs out for fun, and we'll rock Jamaica than sheriff's run. We are the boys no man dares to done if he regards a whole skin. Instead of small, we'll drink brown ale, and bear the reckoning on the nail. No man for debt will go to jail for Gary Owen in glory. Well, our hearts so stout have won his fame, for soon 'tis known from whence we came. Where'er we go, they dread the name of Gary Owen in glory. Instead of spall, we'll drink brown ale, and bear the reckoning on the nail. The man for debt will go to jail for Gary Owen in glory. Instead of spall, we'll drink brown ale, and bear the reckoning on the nail. The man for debt will go to jail for Gary Owen in glory. So famously, of course, General Custer played that song as he rode to his death.
No way.
At the battle, as the Indians called it, the Battle of Greasy Grass, but everyone else called it the Battle of the Real Big One, because for some reason the military liked to name battles after the closest river instead of where the battle actually took place. That's why there's the Battle of Manassas and the Battle of Bull Run, because Manassas actually took place on the farm next to Bull Run. That's what the Southerners call it, and then the Battle of Bull Run is what everyone else called it because it's next to the Bull Run River. Am I correct on that, Carl? Yes, sir. All right. All right. Well, Carl's got a great talk for us this morning, and since we are in a church house, we'll finish up with one last song this morning. We'll do a song from the 1850s, which would have probably been sung in this church at one time or another. And so we did a good bar drinking song. It's good to kind of redeem ourselves. Sing the wondrous love of Jesus. Sing his mercy and his grace. In the mansions bright and blessed, he'll prepare for us a place. When we all get to heaven, what a day of rejoicing that will be. When we all see Jesus, we'll sing and shout for victory. While we walk the pilgrim pathways, clouds over sky, no travel days are o'er, no shadow nor a sigh. When we get to heaven, what day will be? We'll all sing rejoicing for the victory. When we all get to heaven, what a day of rejoicing that will be. When we all see Jesus, we'll sing and shout for victory. Let them be truthful and be faithful, true, trusting now and serving every day with what we do. Just glimpsing of his glory, will the toils be true when we all get there? When we all get to heaven, what a day of rejoicing that will be. When we all see Jesus, we'll sing and shout for victory.
Thanks, Matt.
Yes, ma'am.
I want to brag just a little bit on Matt. I learned something the other day. Matt went to KOM early on Wednesday morning and did a little clip for Cato on the Cato morning, or the KOM morning show. And we were waiting for him to go on. And I learned that Matt is I already knew he was multi-talented. He can do anything you ask him to do. But when he was in high school, he had a football scholarship to go to play at Arkansas, blew out his knee, then he decided, since he wasn't gonna be, did I get that right?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, that he wasn't gonna be able to play football, but he could sing. So he decided to join the choir, and he ended up going to Pittsburgh State, and he has a degree in opera. He is a opera singer.
And I won't bore y'all with opera music this morning. Huh? Yeah, that's right. It's very interesting. If you've never been to an opera before, they're absolutely fabulous. All right, Carl Brenner. Short and sweet introduction. My name is Carl Brenner. I am here today to share with you, well, first of all, welcome to Cato, Kansas and Cato Days. I'm here to share with you some of the stories that the land tells us of the people who once were here and have come through this area. We'll be having discussion. I don't want this to be me speaking at you. I want us to be having a conversation. Boy, am I up high here. Not that I'm afraid of heights, but I'm like, wow.
And the podium doesn't get up high
Right.
enough for you.
Well, I'll just
We'll be up here.
sorry, too silly. So I want to have some conversations with you and ask you some questions as we're going through there and get dialogue going. So what does having land mean to you? What are some thoughts?
Security.
Security?
Food,
Food?
taking care of it for the next generation.
Preserving for the next generation, future generations. I like where you're going with that. I
missions that include that. Other things?
Freedom.
Freedom. Having land means you have freedom. So all the basic needs are met. Food, shelter, that you can survive. But before all that shelter and that food was on the land, all these churches, the church that we're in now, the cabins that we're here, the schoolhouse, before all that existed, this was native land. How do you feel, or what do you think would have been the native approach to the land? What are their thoughts on the meaning of land?
They didn't belong to any certain person.
Different from us, it didn't belong to them as a person. Other thoughts?
Their life, they had a sense that their life sprung from the land.
Life sprung from the land, from Mother Turtle.
It was alive.
It was alive. They interacted with it. Absolutely. So a little bit different approach from when the natives were here and the settlers moved in. So the original settlers that were here come from a group called the Dihaji Siouan. And their origin is all the way back to the Middle Woodland period, about 200 to 400 AD, and way up the Ohio River Valley into Pennsylvania. And as they moved south and west along the Ohio River, eventually they come to the Mississippi. And that's when they started, and these are the mound builders. If you've ever heard of Cahokia, Illinois, the giant mounds that were there, the giant cultures, that was part of this group. And when they got to the Mississippi River, portions of the group started to split. And I would share the story of it, but I would prefer that to be told by a native because it's their story to tell. But parts of the groups broke off. And what we know now is Quapaw, downstream, if you've heard of downstream casino, Quapaw translates downstream. They went down the Mississippi River. The rest of the groups started heading up north to St. Louis, what we now know as St. Louis, and they split again there. The Omaha and the Ponca headed up farther north. The Osage and the Kaw, or the Kansan as originally they were termed, which the state gets its name from, Osage is known as the children of the Middle Waters because they went across the middle to the Missouri River, headed in through Missouri and into what is now Kansas. So that's the people who were originally settling in this area and around. They were all related. If you look at words in each of these tribal languages, they're almost all exactly the same. All because they're from that same original group. Now, as we move forward, just before the 1830s, the Osage and the Kansa or Kaw called this home. And there was wonderful hunting grounds, rivers, trade routes being set up and being used. But in 1830, things changed. There was an act signed by President Andrew Jackson called the Indian Removal Act. And it forced Native nations to move from the east to west of the Mississippi River. Now, when you hear the word Indian removal, what do you think of?
Trail of Tears.
Trail of Tears, the best known. There was hundreds of different trails with similar and sometimes worse names. But this isn't just a story of people moving from the south. It's a constant relocation and forced removal. So, how would you feel if one day you're at home with your family, there's a knock at the door, and soldiers are standing there telling you, it's time to move west. You need to walk hundreds or thousands of miles. How do you feel? Not happy? Well, scared. You don't know what to expect. You don't know what's out there. I'm sorry? Worried. Yeah,
They loved this place. This place provided life for them. They knew that the hunting was good here. They knew where to fish. They knew how to get shelter. They knew how to live here. They didn't know what they were going to there.
No, they had absolutely no idea what to expect. It was, when you think about native languages, like for instance the Osage language, there's a word for the Atlantic Ocean. There was was no word for the Pacific Ocean. They'd never been there. They didn't know anything about that area. They had words for the Smoky Mountains, but they had no words for the deserts of the Southwest, because that just wasn't part of their language, that wasn't part of their knowledge or culture. So if you're forced to leave, what kind of things might you take? What would be important? You have to leave right now. So basic clothes, sacred items to you, and then think about what would you have to leave behind? What couldn't you take? Your ancestors that you left there, that you buried there. All of your history would be left in that space, physically and emotionally. So, Indian Removal Act moved dozens of tribes to the Kansas area. The Potawatomi, the Kickapoo, the Shawnee, the Delaware, the Miami, the War, the Peoria, the Ottawas, and many, many others. Kansas became this patchwork. And when we're done speaking, I put some information down there, and I have a diagram of the patchwork of native tribes that called Kansas home at that point. And in preparation for this removal and march west, the government set up this line of forts, which Mac talked about a little bit before, and it went from Minnesota down to Louisiana and separated the United States, which right now Missouri would have been the closest state. You would have been outside of the United States sitting here. Well, you wouldn't have been sitting here, you would have been standing in the woods. So you would have been outside the United States, and this line of forts from Fort Snelling to Fort Jessup would create that separation between the United States and this permanent Indian frontier, as they called it. And the soldiers that were settled or put on these forts, their job was, as the Native Americans arrived, to make sure they didn't go back and raid the ranches and farms they just walked past that has all this food, because, as you said, they don't know what they can hunt here. They don't know what's going to grow. It's going to take them 3 years to get a crop to feed their families, to feed the nation. So they didn't want them going back and raiding those ranches and farms. They also were trying to prevent settlers from coming into this permanent Indian frontier and creating the next great homestead, but taking the resources the natives needed to survive. So that was the separation that they had to enforce. Also, these natives are being set on top of other native tribes that are already here, like the Osage and the Kaw. So trying to keep the separation from infighting from them. Now, this line of forts has changed, and we'll talk about that a little bit more in a second. So as these tribes arrive in Kansas, the federal government started negotiating treaties with them. Well, they've been negotiating treaties for a long time with Native peoples, but for Kansas. And I've got the outline down here on one of the handouts, or one of the display sheets, of how the Osage Nation kept being moved south in what we now call Kansas. We talked about the Cherokee Neutral Lands, which Cato would have been on originally. That was set up in 1836 to create this buffer between Missouri and the white settlers and the Cherokee Nation. Well, originally, that was part of a 1925 treaty to create a buffer between the Osage Nation and Missouri. It was transferred then in 36 because the Osage were continually being colonialized and pushed farther south and into Oklahoma. So Cherokee Neutral Lands is what people know now because that was the last name they were known by. But this was an area that was promised to them through these treaties to be their forever homeland. But removal and relocation continued to push them farther. So think about how far the East Coast is. And you spoke of Trail of Tears. Think about having to walk from South Carolina or New York or Delaware to Kansas. What kind of trials and tribulations would you have to experience? What kind of suffering would you and your family go through? Distances range from hundreds to thousands of miles. In 1837, 859 Potawatomi people were forced from Indiana into Kansas. They had to, and the route passed just a day's travel north of here. They were forced to march this, and Father Benjamin Petit was a missionary to them that walked that with them, administering to them and trying to provide care to them as they were walking from Indiana into Kansas. He created a diary of all this activity. And we talk about the Trail of Tears. Well, he called this the Trail of Death Diary. And there's a quote from 1838 in September that says, "We've walked under the hot sun all day. I hear the cries of mothers. They're bearing a child again." This is just one day's notation. He died shortly after they made it to Kansas because he had suffered so much. He witnessed them being forced to march single file from Indiana to Kansas, constantly being hurried by soldiers to make it here faster. Over 40 people died on that journey. And this permanent frontier kept moving. I know this is a little more somber than the wonderful music you had, sorry. But this is a very somber topic, and I appreciate the ability to have a conversation with you about it. 1831, Shawnee leaders talked to U.S. officials about, we're a nation of farmers. We ask only to remain in peace. Upon the soil we made fruitful. That's when they were being moved to Kansas and being put on land that they would hopefully again make fruitful. So all this peace that they talked about through treaties did not come to them in ways that they had expected. And by the time Cato was founded, most of these lands had been sold again. This was an era where unscrupulous land offices, mercenaries, people wanting this land were harassing and burning villages and killing people, trying to get them to move off this land. And then in 1854, the Kansas-Nebraska Act opened much of this land to white settlement. The Cherokee neutral lands were sold, and that paved the way for many of the towns that have grown up around here. Cato found, as you said, in 1854, arose directly from these land secessions. So the same trails that brought these settlers here to Cato were some of the same trails that carried the Potawatomi, the Shawnee, and the Osage families away to other lands. So beneath Cato's buildings and streets lies a story of treaties, removal, and resilience. Even after removal, Native peoples continued to pray and visit these lands. And today, several of these sovereign nations still exist in this area. The Prairie Band of Potawatomis, the Iowa tribe, the Kickapoo, and the Sac and Fox. So, a Potawatomi elder was quoted as saying, "The prairie has a long memory, and we may not live on every hill, but our songs are still there." Every treaty, every boundary change had human consequences. Families uprooted, graves left behind, children growing up in unfamiliar landscapes. But this is, as I said, also a story of resilience. So many of these tribes continue to thrive. Cato grew, thrived, and eventually faded, like many frontier towns. But its land remains layered with memory. Adapted from a Potawatomi elder reflection quote, "The land remembers. Our stories in the rivers, the stones, the prairies, waiting for those to listen." story of Indian removal is complex and often painful, but it's also deeply human. So as you walk around today, through this site, take a moment to imagine standing here in 1854, before this town was created. Think about who walked here before you. Think about their dreams and their thoughts and their aspirations. And what stories might be waiting to be found. Also think about the new settlers arriving, their excitement, their dreams, their hopes for a new life here as well. And imagine that as you walk out across that gravel road in front of us, that those stones might be the same stones that were under the feet of the natives or the original settlers that came here. History isn't just about what's written, it's about what's remembered and what we choose to continue to remember. So I encourage you to think about those things as you're walking around today. There's a lot of fun to be had, a lot of great presentations, but a lot of history. And I encourage you to think about how we honor both people who were displaced and settlers who came here thereafter. Enjoy your day here at Cato. As I said, I have some maps down here of Kansas, Nebraska, certain areas of the original Cherokee neutral lands, of different tribal entities and the reservations, and the area of Indian removal in Kansas. Questions?
Well, now the Cherokee neutral lands, you said that they allowed them in here in 1854?
1836. It was created in 1836.
But the settlers were allowed to come in.
Not until the Kansas-Nebraska Act of 1854 were settlers supposed to be in this area. This was supposed to be just for the Native Americans. This was the permanent Indian frontier. So the settlers were supposed to be kept out so that they wouldn't be taking resources the natives needed.
Well, I'm thinking about the timing. I thought it was much later. I thought it wasn't until 1860 that the settlers were allowed in here. But you're saying 1854 they were allowed.
1854, the Kansas-Nebraska Act created the Kansas Territory, allowing people to settle here.
So Cato was never here illegally. It was always.
No, this was founded when the Kansas-Nebraska Act was created. The same time about when the fort was created. Because when the Kansas-Nebraska Act, when the Cherokee neutral lands were set, because the Cherokee were being moved in here, there was a fort before Fort Scott, called Fort Wayne, on the Cherokee neutral lands. The Cherokee Nation didn't want a military fort on their lands. They petitioned Congress to have it closed. Congress said, okay, and they moved, they surveyed for a better spot. Fort Scott was created because it's halfway between Leavenworth and Fort Gibson, the two forts on either side of us. It was about the halfway point. It was on high ground. It was much safer, and it wasn't on what was designated as a reservation, though Fort Scott is where the New York Indians were supposed to be resettled. But yeah, Cato wasn't here illegal. It was here as part of the Kansas-Nebraska Act, opening the territory.
Because my understanding, the town of Fort Scott was not officially established until 1854 as well.
1855.
1855. But they didn't even, the military started selling the buildings in 53, and the auction went on up until 1854, selling the lands that the military owned there in Fort Scott.
Yeah, they couldn't sell the land before the Kansas-Nebraska Act because it was native lands. They were stealing enough from them, they chose not to do that as well. 1853, the fort was closed, and all the troops were sent farther west or to other places. That was also 1853 was the same year Fort Riley was opened. So we believe a lot of the horse soldiers, or what were dragoons, now become cavalry, were moved up to Fort Riley, but other forts out west got the infantries. But yeah, it was closed. A caretaker was there inventorying the buildings, preparing for the full auction.
And the soldiers from Fort Scott actually evicted squatters on this land.
Yes. Yeah, that was their that was part of their purpose, was keeping the peace through shock and awe, and also removing any settlers that they were finding around these areas, all across the territory. Yeah. Other questions?
Where's the saber drill gonna be at?
It's gonna be in this big field right out here. And I'll talk to you about that in just a second. Carl, thank you so much.
My pleasure.
It gives us a lot to think about.
It does.
And I appreciate that. And I hope you guys will come up and enjoy some of the things here. And be sure and thank Matt and Carl for their time this morning. I just want to remind you of a couple of things, okay? Don't forget the quilt raffle. I have 2 young ladies who are going to help me collect some donations this morning. So if you girls want to start, one of you on this side, one of you on that side, dig in your pockets, grab a couple of dollars if you have them. If you don't worry about it, we'll catch you later. But, there's always later.
We are in church, aren't we?
Yeah, there you go. So here's the deal. After we leave here, we're gonna have cavalry saber drills out here on the field.
You're getting too close to her ears.
Woo!
There we go. If you impale someone, you bring it down and twist, and you see what that saber has done. You could get their body off of it really fast, and then bring it around. Also, another thing, they were never razor sharp. This is a blunt force instrument. The brutality of war at that time. Your main objective with this was a bone breaker. If you wound, you take 2 or 3 guys out of the battle because his buddies are going to grab him and haul him off. If you kill him, you've taken 1 out. That's the brutality of the war with one of these. Now, my name is Matthew Field. I'm from over in Richville, Missouri. Done Civil War cavalry and Indian War cavalry reenacting for 25 years. This horse is pretty fresh at that. My little one down there is aged out of it. I've used her so much. So, training, obviously, you got to put horses through these drills to do this sort of thing, and to be able to show how it was done back then. The equipment that I'm carrying is pretty well an exact copy of what was used by an Army officer in 1860. Now, private purchase, a pair of Navy Colts that I carry on the front of the saddle in a private purchase set of pommel holsters. But the saddle that I'm on is pretty much what they had to ride during the whole war.
Not really a saddle horn.
No saddle horn. Hey, turn sideways so they can see this thing. This saddle was designed by a captain by the name of George B. McClellan in 1858. George B. McClellan went on later to have quite a bit of fame during the war between the states, Civil War, whatever you want to call it. Think of this as nothing more than a pack saddle you can ride. Everything a soldier was issued had to be carried right here. Right down to...
Doesn't look very comfortable.
a spare horseshoes for the horse. The comfort of this saddle was irrelevant for the trooper. This saddle was designed with the horse in mind. The open seat like that, hole down the middle of it, That is so the horse's spine can breathe. It has nothing to do with the comfort of the soldier. Anybody have any idea what that would be?
Feed bag. Got the boats in it?
There is some oats and corn still in there from the last deal we did. That's what they had to feed the horses with every day. That slips over the muzzle of the horse. Obviously, hey, get your head up here. Halter, bridle, all of this had to be carried at all times.
Did the supply wagons have the grain for the horses?
They did, but when soldiers would go out on campaign and in the field, they were expected to carry 3 days' rations for themselves and the horse, and make basic circles and link back up with supply wagons to refit. So, yeah. Can't you hold still?
Yeah, it's gotta go where the good grass is.
Good grief. Hold still. So yeah, everything had to be carried. Everything they were issued is right here, including the 2 blankets that a soldier was issued at the time to sleep with at night. Guess where those 2 blankets are? Under the saddle. Now, thankfully they are wool. I have slept with wet wool blankets before. They will keep you warm. It doesn't smell the best, it smells of horse. But, yeah. Another little thing that they have here. This right here. The tactic of the day on big battles was cavalry moves in a column of 4s. 3 men would dismount, the 4th man would stay mounted. They'd hand them the horses and send them on. So the guys that dismount, you link up to the halter of the horse that's next. And then the guy that's on the guy that stays horseback only has 1 lead line and 3 horses that he takes to the rear. The horse costs money. The soldier was free.
Get the back.
Is there any last minute questions? In order to remain on schedule, we're going to have to move on to the school. If you have any last minute questions?
What's the name of the horse?
Right now, it might not be repeatable.
There's young kids here.
Yes. So this horse belongs to my son, and he calls him Blanco.
Oh, okay.
I refer to him as Elmer.
As
Elmer. So, yeah.
along with myself, Anna Swank, would like to welcome you to the Cato School, where for the next few minutes we hope to teach you a little bit about the school in which you find yourself and the community in town in which you find yourself today. But we're going to do it in fast forward. So the typical day in a one-room schoolhouse started early for the teacher, who would arrive at least an hour or so before her students. Unlike we we have today, they were the janitors and they were the caretakers of the building. So they would get here early. If it was cold, they would build the stove. Just a little bit about the stove in the middle of the room. That was not the stove that we've been told was here when it was actually a school. It wouldn't have worked very well. It was actually in the same spot, but they said it was much smaller, that this coal-burning stove was put in when it was a community center. After they would do that, they would bring in water from the well, so students didn't have to go out to get it. So we have like the bucket in the back to represent that. And then they would do things that normal teachers would do as plan for the day, write on the chalkboard, almost said whiteboard, and just get ready for the day. The next thing we want to share with you are some of the rules that teachers and students had. So first we'll do the teachers' rules. I'm going to share the female teachers' rules for around the year of 1860.
And I'll be sharing the ones for male teachers around the same time period.
So the first rule for a female teacher in 1860 was they were not allowed to get married during the term of their contract.
First rule for male teachers, we were not to frequent pool halls, public halls, saloons, or taverns.
Number 2 for females, they were not to keep company with men.
Second rule for male teachers, we were not to be seen getting shaved in a barber shop because we were expected to be able to shave ourselves.
Number 3 for females, they were not allowed to be away from their domiciles or their homes between the hours of 8 p.m. and 6 a.m. unless they were attending a school function.
Third rule for male teachers, we were not to take more than one evening per week for courting, and the other day when we had the kids for Cato days, I had to kind of explain to them, courting meant dating day. So couldn't take more than one evening per week for courting unless attending church regularly, in which case 2 evenings each week was permitted.
Number 4 for females, they weren't allowed to leave the district, so the area in with the school, without special permission from the president of the Board of Trustees. So they had to kind of stay in this area without special permission to leave.
That's all the rules for me.
Number 5 for females, they were not allowed to loiter in town ice cream stores. They weren't allowed to ride in a carriage with any male other than blood kin. Number 7, they weren't allowed to dye their hair. They weren't allowed to wear face paint, mascara, or lip paint, so no makeup. They weren't allowed to wear bright colors. They weren't allowed to wear a dress more than 2 inches above their ankle. And number 11, they had to wear at least 2 petticoats or slips underneath their dresses. So as a female teacher in 1860, I had 11 rules.
And males had 3 rules.
So now some rules that the students had.
No cell phones.
Yeah. So one of the first things is boys and girls shall file into the classroom on separate sides and be seated on opposite sides of the room, and they come in quietly. And we explained that's why there's 2 doors in a lot of your one-room schoolhouses. The boys went on one side, the girls went on the other. Boys and girls shall remove caps upon entering. Children must sit up straight and tall at all times, and all the kids usually do that. Children must not squirm, fidget, or whine, and children must be clean and tidy at all times. In fact, a daily inspection of your neck, ears, and fingernails will happen before class to ensure your cleanliness. Young ladies must never show a bare ankle, and boys and girls' clothing should always cover their arms and legs completely. So I always point out some kids that are wearing shorts or t-shirts or tank tops and say, "You're out of here." And nothing shall be dipped in the inkwells except pins or quills. And yeah, they're pigtails, yeah. And now the one the kids always like to hear, some punishments. All right, so just a few punishments. If you were tardy to school, like some of our students up here were, you could be expected to stay at least an hour after school, and I am 100% sure that teacher would put you to work sweeping the floor or mopping the floor or cleaning or doing some of the things that she didn't want to do. If you didn't turn in an assignment, they would automatically double your assignment. If you were caught writing with your left hand at that time, you could get a ruler whack on your knuckles. If you were caught talking out of turn, you could get a whack with a rod. If you were caught throwing things, you could get 5 whacks with a rod. If you got caught chewing tobacco or just spitting in general, you could get 7 whacks with a rod. If you were caught speaking immoral language, and so we explained that's cussing, using cuss words, you could get suspended, and that surprised them. Just saying a cuss word, you could get suspended. And then carving or defacing school property, lying, cheating, or fighting caused them to get completely kicked out.
All right, class, it's time to start school. But before we do, for my younger gentleman in the back, you didn't think I would see you and your little brother there. I was sneaking into my classroom late. So the both of you, yes, you two, can see me after school for afternoon chores. All right, with that said, ladies and gentlemen, it's now time for our reading lesson. If you would, please open up your books and read quietly at your desk while I help the younger students up front.
During reading, students took turns reading from their assigned primers, and they would come up to the recitation bench, which was usually located close to the teacher desk or to the front of the room. In early years, books were very expensive. They were also heavy, so when settlers were coming to the area, they didn't always bring a lot of books with them. So they might have had the family Bible, might have been the only book they carried with them, because they didn't have a lot of room for what they had to bring with them. As the years grew, they were able to order more books, and as it became more populated. One of the most popular ones you've probably heard of is the McGuffey Reader. Here in Kansas, in this area, one of the most popular was called Williams Choice Literature. And it wasn't uncommon for students to read the same book over and over, and have read every book in the school several times because there wasn't a lot of them.
All right, class, that's all the time we have for reading. It's now time to move to history. Some of you have been working on history reports. I think we'll have one of our students give a little bit of his history report on the school building of Cato and the area of Cato itself. So Andrew, if you would please, could you start off by reading some of your history reports, sir?
You might think that the building in which you stand is the original Cato School. However, this building was constructed in 1869 as the second school in Cato. The first school built in 1867 was on the farm of Chad Brown, who settled in the area sometime after 1857 and returned after serving in the Civil War. The building was a log cabin with no windows. The only light came from the front door and from a hole in the north wall where the part of the log was removed. I imagine this made learning hard to do on rainy days. The log school was located west of the present school and was built by William Harris and his brother. The first teacher was Dr. C.H. Strong. Also teaching in this school were Mr. Emery Condit and Mr. Wilcox, and then Mrs. Lee Wallace, who was the first teacher in Crawford County to draw pay from taxes paid to support public schools. This modest structure was the first school in Cato and the first school in Crawford County.
Very good. So it sounds to me like you've got a good start on the school buildings. Can you tell us more, if you have anything in your history report about the area of Cato?
Well, the first settlers began building homes in the area in the 1850s. These Europeans knew that the area was as the Cherokee neutral land. John Rogers, one of the town's founders, moved to Cato in 1854 from Fort Scott. He built the first store building in town. E.J. Boring established the first post office, and being postmaster, named the town after Judge Sterling G. Cato of the Kansas Territorial Supreme Court on July 30th, 1858. Other early settlers included Willie Coonrod Sr., Alicia Black Sr., H.B. Brown, and Ezekiel Brown. Cato had the first town, first post office, first school, first grist mill, first coal mining operation, and hosted the first county fair in the county. All because the state of Kansas created a new county in 1867 named Crawford County. Before this, Cato was part of Bourbon County, Kansas. in 1869, a growing community decided they needed a larger and more up-to-date school and built the very building we stand in today. The official books tell us that the school was organized on September 15th, 1870. Therefore, if we do the math, it has been 155 years since the school was organized and 156 years since it was built.
Very good. Sounds like you got a good start on your history report. Make it turn to your seat, sir.
Just to add a tiny bit more to his, just to tell you about what happened after that. So the last group of students who attended here in the 1955-1956 school year. It was a very small class with only 9 people, and I counted, there's 10 up here, so this would have been pretty much the class that attended. There were 5 males and 4 females in that group. It was taught by Hazel and Ducott. And then the school dissolved officially 3 years after that and closed. The community kept using it as a community center. We even heard at one time it was a bar, so it was used for quite a few different things before it went into disarray, and then as we started to fix it up. And so looking around this building, though, is 156 years old, so doing pretty good for that age.
All right, class, that's our history lesson for today. It's now time to move into one of your favorite areas of the day, that'd be recess. But because it's a little chilly outside, we're going to stay inside and share riddles. So, luckily for you, I have some riddles for you. So, if you don't by chance get it, I'll open up to my extended students or class, and maybe they can help us out. So let's try some of the riddles I shared with the students at Cato Days the other day. So, start off with, and if you know it, you can't say it. For some of y'all. No cheating. For the 2 redheads. Why did the Scarecrow receive an award? Why did the Scarecrow receive an award?
Because he was scared-tastic.
That's a good guess, but no. Why did the Scarecrow receive an award?
He was outstanding in his field.
There we go. He was outstanding in this field. All right. Next one I shared. This one didn't go over quite so well, but they had to think a little bit. I am a container without hinges, key, or lid. A container without hinges, key, or lid, yet golden treasure inside is hid. What am I? No, not a treasure chest.
Honeycomb?
No, that would be a good guess, but not the answer we're looking for here.
Oh.
The what? Egg? Yes, an egg. So, all right. Here's another one. Why couldn't the skeleton cross the road? Why couldn't the skeleton cross the road?
Because he was made of.
Well, yes, that's kind of it. Ethan?
He had no balls. He had no body.
No.
He didn't have no guts.
He didn't have the guts to cross the road. And this will be my last one, I promise. What do you call a skeleton with a broom? What do you call a skeleton with a broom? Forgot. Any other guesses? What do you call a skeleton with a broom, Maggie?
I was thinking of, what's my name, boy?
Audrey?
I was thinking of a witch skeleton.
No. Anybody else? What do you call a skeleton with a broom? No. No. All right. So, what do you call a skeleton with a broom? The Grim Sweeper. And with that, I'm done. All right. With that, it's now time to move into our orthography lesson. So, if you would, please draw your attention to the front of the whiteboard.
Orthography is defined as the rules of reading and writing. Today, our students know this as language arts.
All right, class. Up front on the blackboard is our orthography lesson, so this kind of comes a little bit from our history lesson as well. So, using just the first line, this school was built in 1869. Can anybody in my class please tell me anything needs to be corrected? Yes, ma'am.
The first letter of sentence needs to be capitalized.
First letter in what?
The sentence.
Yep, this. So the T needs to be capitalized. Yes, ma'am.
And first, it needs to be an I instead of a U.
Okay, in that sentence, yes. Anything else in the first line though? Ma'am. It needs to be a period, that is correct. Anything else in the first sentence?
The A.
The A,
The U needs to be an A.
there it was, is misspelled. Anything else in the first sentence? Margaret?
There's on instead of on, it's supposed to be in.
It should be in, there we go.
69.
What about the second sentence? Obviously, we've already got first is misspelled. Yes, ma'am.
Cato needs to be capitalized.
Cato needs to be capitalized. Yes, ma'am. There's a period there. Yes, ma'am.
First needs to be an I instead of.
Yep, we've already got that. Yep. Anything else? What about the last sentence? Anything we see in the last sentence needs to be fixed?
Yeah.
Yes, ma'am.
Last.
Last?
Wait, no, that's not right.
Yep. Yes, ma'am.
Needs to be spelled T-H-E.
Yep, we're missing the E there. Alright, yes, ma'am. Yep, the E and Endicott needs to be capitalized. And for anybody in my class, what about this? Are you asking a question here or for anybody? There we go, we need to change it to question mark. So that is all the time we have for our orthography lesson. So now it's time we move into our elocution lesson.
We explained to the students that the teacher back in those times, or the school nurse, they were the music teacher, they were the janitor, they taught every subject, so they didn't see a different teacher for different things. And one of the things they had to do was help kids learn to pronounce words correctly. And one of the ways they did this was by repeating sayings after the teacher. Sometimes they would use things like tongue twisters.
All right. If you draw your attention to the back of the blackboard, we have one elocution on the board, and I actually have two more that we'll read out loud too. So if you would, as I read each line, if you would please repeat after me. If two witches were watching two watches, which would watch which watch. And there we're working on the W sound. All right. So as I said, I've got two more that I'll read out loud, and then again, you just as I do each line, if you would please repeat after me. So, silly Sally swiftly shooed. Seven silly sheep. The seven silly sheep. Silly Sally shooed. Shilly shally south. And there we're working on the S sound. All right, and then the last one I have. A big black bug. Bit a big black bear. We'll try that one more time. Bit a big black bear. And the big black bear. Bled blood. There we go. So again, there we're working on the B sound. So that is our elocution lesson for today, ladies and gentlemen. It's now time we move into our lunch time. So if you would, please pull out what you have in your sacks and hold them up.
Lunch consisted of what the students could bring from home. The most common thing that they brought with them was dried meats or beef jerky, hard-boiled eggs, fruits and vegetables from the farm, or common, whatever was in season is what they brought. We had to explain to them that they didn't have lunchrooms to go to, and the food wasn't warm, that it was whatever they could bring for those days. So bread and butter sandwiches.
All right, class, that's all the time we have for lunch. So we'll start moving into our last few lessons of the day before school ends up. But before we do, there's some things that need to be addressed. First and foremost, for my younger students up front, sir, the food is for chewing, not throwing. I'm pretty sure your parents will be very disappointed in the food that they grew hard on their farm, and you're wasting it by throwing it in my classroom.
Whacking with the ruler.
Speaking of which, for my gentleman in the back, Terry. You didn't, speaking of chewing food, the only thing that should be chewed in my classroom is food and not the tobacco I'm sure you swiped from your father. And then last but not least, for the two gentlemen right here, you didn't think I wouldn't see it, but the young lady's hairs are not to be dipped in the inkwell, so you two can see me after school for your paddling.
It's okay. It's okay. I don't care.
With that said, ladies and gentlemen, it's now time that we move into our arithmetic lesson, so if you would please get your blackboard and chalk pieces ready as we move into arithmetic. So, this week we have been working on our basic arithmetic skills, as we see right here behind my desk, adding, subtracting, multiplying, and dividing. So with that said, I have some basic word problems for you to try. All right, so I'm going to read out the problem. You're going to do your best, show your work. When you have your answer, you think you have the answer, hold it up, and we'll check. So again, this is kind of like a race. All right, so here we go. If one apple costs 3 cents, how much will 7 apples cost? If one apple costs 3 cents, how much will 7 apples cost? So what's the answer?
21 cents.
Now how did you get that?
7 times 3 is 21.
Very good. 7 times 3 is 21. Now can any of my older students may tell me another way we could have got that same problem but with a different operation? What? Repeated addition. There we go. By the way, I'm a former high school math teacher, so.
Well, you got it right.
Yeah. So. All right. So one more arithmetic problem for the day. All right. So here we go. If a ship sells 6 miles an hour, how far will it go in 7 hours? Matt,
42 miles.
and how did you figure that out?
Times 6 by 7.
6 times 7. There we go. And the other day here in Cato, I don't know if any of you follow TikTok, there's a new trend going around for like the number 6, 7. So yeah. So, she's like, you need to try to find something to do with that new name to see if you can work it in. And I was like, I'm not going to have them yell out the number. So I worked it in that problem. And finally, about 2 or 3 groups in the first part of the session, they're like, oh, he did it. They're like, and then by the afternoon, none of them caught on, and some of them started going. Some of the adults and teachers are like going, did he do that on purpose? Yeah, we did. So, just so we can work it in. So. All right, class, that's all the time we have for arithmetic. We're now going to move into our spelling and penmanship races. So again, I'm going to give you a word. You're going to spell it as quickly as you possibly can, but you're going to write it as neatly as you possibly can, because otherwise, you'll be standing with me after school. And no thank you, buddy. I don't want any strawberries. I had my lunch already. So, all right, so your first word is, again, this is a race, so you want to hold your board up. All right, so when you get done, hold your board up. Your first word is book. Very good, very good. Okay. Yeah, penmanship. Yeah, we're going to have to work on a little of our handwriting a little bit. All right, erase it. Next word. That's a good job, buddy. You're doing a good job. All right, your next word is school. All right, very good, very good. I expect more out of the older students in the back. So, okay. All right, and most of the time as we go, the other day, we'd only have like 1 or 2 words, so I'd have to kind of pick an easy one, then I'd pick a really hard one, but as we got time, I'm going to kind of work it up, so try to find words that they can kind of spell, so. Next word is going to be... Watch. Watch. That's a good job, buddy. You're right there on it. Good job, good job. Again, I really expect more out of my older students in the back. All right, your last word. So again, you guys have to be really quick on this one, so I gotta make it challenging because our time is drawing near the end of our school day. So, last word. Last word is going to have to be arithmetic. And I would do this with the kids at Greenwood. You know, as you can easily tell, some of them have really picked on. That's a good job, buddy. I mean, that cursing's getting there, buddy. Yeah, okay. I don't know about that. I'll set that chicken scratch in my classroom. So, all right. Very good, very good. But yeah, as you can tell, I would mix up the words. Sometimes I would do arithmetic, sometimes I do orthography, sometimes I do elocution, and that you see the kids go. And then they go. All right, class, that's going to erase your blackboards as our day comes to an end.
As you heard our teacher say, our time is growing short. We hope you were entertained and learned a little bit about our school in which you find yourself today. I want to end first by having anyone who attended a one-room schoolhouse raise your hand. Is there anyone here who attended a one-room schoolhouse? Yeah. And I was told that we have a guest who's outside right now. She was afraid she wasn't able to come in. Her name is Maudine Pitch, and she taught here. She's, as far as we know, the last surviving teacher. And she's 94. Yeah, she's 94 years old, and she's here today.
She's sitting out here at the bottom of the steps, trying to listen, and
so
we've not had her come before, so it's really an honor for her to be here. So you might say hi to her or something.
Yeah. She shared several stories with me a few years ago and wrote some things out, and she's donated several things to our project.
She taught here?
Yes, she taught in this building, yes. I believe in the, like, 1950s-ish, 50, 51, I believe. So, that's off the top of my head. But I'd like to share with you one last thing that a one-room schoolhouse teacher, another one that I was acquainted with in my younger years, she dismissed her class by telling them to turn, stand, and pass. The reason she told them to turn, we explained to the kids, was that your desks, you're sitting on the desk of the kid behind you, so if you squirmed a lot, their handwriting might not be real good. But a lot of times these desks were hooked to the floor, or they were hooked to a board, so you couldn't scoot your desk or your chair back to get up, so you had to turn in your seat in order to stand up. So that was the turn. Stand, of course, meant to stand, and pass meant that they could leave. That was her signal that the school day was over. So I hope you enjoyed your time here today, and we'll end by having our teacher say,
You may now turn, stand, and pass.
And you don't have to read what now you want to, we're going to do something for the cabin next. But if you guys want to watch, look at things, or thinking, or not back.
Well, I can choose one.
Say this is a salesman's model, or what was this?
What's that?
When was this created? Is this yours?
Yeah, it's my son. My dad made it.
Your dad made it?
Yeah.
So it was just a reproduction that he did?
Well, he measured up the big one and built the little one.
Looks like it might have been something like a salesman's model or something, but no, that's not it. It was just
hammered it out of his shop.
Well, that's pretty nice.
Died on it. help you fellers out? You are trespassing on Cherokee land, and as the United States is bound by treaty stipulations, and you were notified to leave by April 1st, I hereby notify you to remove yourself from the neutral land. If you do not comply immediately, I will return with my army and will burn your cabins and remove you to Fort Scott.
Sir, we're not leaving. We'll stay and fight if we have to. You can't take this land from us.
This is New York Indian land. We have a right to settle here. We were told by the people in Fort Scott that we could settle here.
We poured all the money we had in building cabins and clearing fields. We'll be ruined.
The land you are on is Cherokee land. You are trespassing and you must leave. If you do not leave, I will return with my cavalry company by order of the president and burn you out.
It's unfair. We're just simple, hardworking people and law-abiding citizens.
Yeah.
Get this straight, we ain't leaving.
You hear that?
We'll be ruined.
Boo.
Get on out of here.
Yeah.
Tell Buchanan we told him so.
I don't see no Cherokee around here, no way. Y'all see any Cherokee?
No, sir.
No. Our orders are to remove them.
I think I'm done. I think that's done, Robert.
Go on back to Fort Scott.
You know the reports I'm gonna have to fill out for this? We done got a lawyer right here. He said this land is free and clear. Your deal. You can stay until November 25th. While the matter is being decided in Washington, you have to leave by then. We ain't leaving.
We ain't leaving.
We ain't leaving. You take this land from my cold, dead hands. Well, that can be arranged. All right, let's see. Get on out of here. Yeah.
Go back there and tell that president.
Yeah. Good job, guys.
Thank you.